Okay, greeting everyone. So, morning. So, I'm Vincent. I will be your host for these sections. Today, we were talking about this holistic approach to modern application security testing. This is solution section. That means that we won't talk any specific brand of product, but more on technologies. So let's starting. Okay, what we will do on these sections, we mainly will have three specific areas. First, we talk about the breakdown, because application security is a very wide area and broad. So that what we need to do, first we define about the scope. And then we spend most of the time to the typical problem that will be encountered for most of the enterprise user, and then we will come into the solution. Basically, is what the topic is about. Why the proposing for the holistic approach to modern application security testing. It will be work on the scenario to address all those the problem for that you will be encountered by the most of the typical enterprise user, and then of course we make some time to stop. We based on how many time we have on these the open discussions and any clarification and so on. First, we will define the scope first on the topic. We will be kept this specific section talk because it's just an hour long, so we can't go too broad on what is being covered. So it's very specifically for only the application security testing only. In case you are still what do we mean by application security only, then it is basically as what we are talking about in the form of this one, right? So we definitely need to narrow down, because that in the security is mainly in particular. So even we say for security testing, right? It actually we mainly usually we talk about three quite wide area. One is on the infrastructure security, and then it will be also have the area we cover for server and system security. However, just like what I mentioned before, we are specifically talk only on the application security only. So this is the reason why that we want to round around the talk. As you can see, even so that we are round around from the application security testing, in the traditional way, we usually try to divide the market on the use case, right? We still have a lot of the thing is what we talk about as classified as the applications. We have the enterprise desktop application, mobile application, web application, cloud application. So we are also will be touching on the static and dynamic, whether it's the automatic testing, source code, pen testing, web testing tool, or even is for the on-prem cloud place, or then is very specific for retail, healthcare, for bank, financial and security insurance sector, or even for the IT and the telco. Same as well, that is for the government and public utility specific application. In particularly, they are using the portal app, right? Usually it's in-house developed, and so on, right? All those things actually we can talk about is part of the application security. Then of course we talk about the web application. That Typically, we talk about the end-tier base, right? So we have client, web server, application server, and database server, and then with transport. This whole thing here, whether they sit into the same boxes or spread across different boxes, right? It is also part of the domain that today we were touching on into the high-level technology, because we won't specifically talk about the brand and product, just like I earlier already stated clearly, right? So we define this is the scope for today, what we will be talking about. And for the problem, like mentioned about, typical problem that will be encountered by the end user. The end user here, because due to reason for all these type of tool, mostly is geared to work on the institution customer, or what we so call corporate or government specific. Even so that eventually most of sometimes the tool is used by individual employee, but the use case is always to solve business case in hand, right? Whether that they use a tool, the main thing is because that they need to use a tool to perform certain thing for the institution and customer. That means is the enterprise use case, right? So we define all those things is specifically for this kind of scenario. They have a few key areas that I sorting out. We were touching all those things is on 3 core areas. We will spend some time on this. One is on the rapid changing technology, and then the attack surface that is keep expanding in the modern infrastructure, and then touching a bit on the DSecOps also. Why we want to say so? Okay, you can see that in the market, we are keep into changing. They have a few areas we can probably touching in just to make the thing flow and going. Okay, as the technology keep changing, we just highlight. They have a lot of point here. I just like to highlight a few points that would to explain. Right? First is regarding the customer to not catch up with the latest change and challenge. We will talk one point at a time. Why we say so? Because sometimes that typically enterprise customer we're talking, either they are too busy in the operation, so-called no time to update or the skilling to catching up what is a new changing in the market, which is usually that it will be end up to be have a lot of a mispractice in place. I give you one classic example. I always when we come across a customer, sometimes they will assume that they will have, let's say, the automated web scanner will cover them every of the web application problem, because they believe that the auto will detect all the problem area that without really needed to sharpening the skill to perform for the manual testing. Where in really, as you know, that they will have a perception that doing for vulnerability assessment, the report you generate from those whatever brand of the scanner is equivalent to the pen testing. Right? Even that from them, they don't even know how to exploit based on the vulnerability that is mentioned, and so on. As you can see, with this kind of too busy, or because due to the reason that is a human natures, we won't really want to spend hard time to learn and reskilling ourselves, or to catching up with a new way of the testing or new tool, how to perform some modern testing and exploit, right? We believe, because of that, we believe what worked from the past will equivalent to the futures. This is why you won't supply that a lot of the scenario they had some customer continue to renew for the legacy and O2 that almost is do nothing with the existing modern of the future enterprise project, or what is the really needed features or functionality, but they continue doing in the old way. That is because that they believe that in the so to put in one word here, so-called is a mispractice thinking. So another mostly I would think that the cause for this kind of a mispractice not tied to the too busy, then it is actually is due to reason for the new employee to not really possess the needed skill and competency to do so. You just imagine, we can't expect that people just graduate from the, let's say, from university, from IT. They will know how to doing for something so specific and narrow scope of how to, let's say, perform business logic testing, for example, to coding from your website. Same as well, we don't expect that people just without getting through some formal training that you know how to perform for the database user right review, for example, right? Same as well, I can say so from wireless pen testing to exploit from Wi-Fi to setting up the URL tree, and then to see about how the wireless network for all the people that will be connected over there to know how weak the network it is. But of course, all those things is also because of the employee, the new one, right? Especially or the existing one, that the company do not invest much of the reskilling, right? The retraining to make sure that the new employee have the skill set that is needed to do for all those kind of the testing. For instance, mobile application testing. How can you really doing it? Is of course, if you know in the subject matter, then we need to depend on that the testing mechanism you use is based on providing the source code, or is a binary build, right? Then the testing method is different, and then usually we need a different tool to do so. Okay, there is a quick, just some example how the customer side, right, that do not catch up with the latest change and challenge. And then from another side, actually that is more tied up to the vendor, I mean the technology provider, that do not catch up with the latest change and challenge. So again, from the scenario like this, the product champion, actually each of the company that, let's say that like the vendor, right, they definitely had a product champion. The left or the part already. Few reasons to say so. One of the main reasons, sometimes you see that the person is developed something. If the product is over 10 years and longer, sometimes the product champion, it may or may not have that motivation to continue on the same project. So he may decide that it's a time to move on, right? Either he moved to the different company, or he is trying to sell it to other people. So we make it up into another scenario that someone is get over because they cannot catching up. So maybe they will be planned to take over from someone that who already have some of the changing technology they do not have, or as an existing vendor, they will try to reinvest the business selling it to someone else. So the main reason driven is mostly is due to the more and more competitions, and look like me product is offering in the market, where they found that it's become tough to continue to keep doing the same thing, while at the same time they do not process the new technology that is needed to be compete in the new battlefield, right? For instance, the company that will know to doing for dynamic application security testing, or maybe they do static, or they do software composition analysis, or they do interactive application security testing. This all is very unique competency that not all companies will have it all in one house. Not to mention, they have some more modern challenge thinking that we're talking about, that to deal with the mobile application testing. And more complex for the everything here is the service virtualization testing, right? Everything being virtualized as the services, and then you're testing into this completely virtual scenario. Then the modern challenge, we're talking about the IoT. How can you using the all tool in all way to testing for the IoT, right? Example also that I know this year is will be like what? Like dark web, right? How you don't have the tool and technology, you cannot detect like what is going on into the dark web, whether there has someone is sharing something like your email user password or credit card number that is actually stealing from your enterprise and so on, right? So you need that web monitoring. So container and token technology, it becomes so popular that because of a small footprint that compared with virtual machine, that more and more people are using. But you need a very unique container security scanner to detect and scan, because it is not the full-blown virtual machine, right? They don't have OS in that way. You need a very different way to testing. Same as well for the moving to container and the micro services is interrelated. So that the microservices, you can't test like in the past that maybe one big project in the past I have 15 people doing, but by migrating to microservices, I have a 50 small project instead. So the way and speed to doing, you need to enabling all those developers to do the testing is completely a different way. Same as well that the color moving toward the native cloud application that provide a new challenge for the new testing security that need to be carrying out. We are not yet mentioned about the manner application security testing yet. See, that is typically we also equating to penetration testing. This is again is another area that is typically that will be constitute a problem scenario that you will be encountered. So let's move back. Okay, as you can see, beside all those scenarios, we have two more things that we will share is about the attack surface. It keep expanding. What that we say here is just a quick summary. As you can see, from the traditional network, we have network infrastructure, desktop, server, laptop, mobile, virtual machine, and web application. However, by moving into the cloud, we bring in and introduce the container, and then the cloud into the pictures, and then with the OT, with those IoT thinking that come into the picture for some scenario and industry sector, that we have the ICS, the SCADA, right? Usually for the energy and utility company, right? So they have that kind of infra, and then for enterprise IoT. So the attack surface, it keeps expanding. So the issue is most of the enterprise customer, they are, because of the newer reskilling and update in terms of the what is needed to be covered. So end up sometimes they were either using the traditional tool, but you try to coping with the keep changing natures of the keep expanding. The word here using is cyber exposure, right? Basically, it means the gate it keep expanding. However, the tool that you're using is not able to cover all the rest of the gray area. So this is what is mean for this thinking. And then another trend that is that also constitute a problem for most of the time is that it is toward the EPP, and the so-called EPP is actually a term that is being introduced to talk about that for all the application security testing tool, they have one of the long-range trend is that most of the specialist experts or analysts is believe so that for this whole platform and portfolio, it should eventually absorb into what they so-called EPP, the Endpoint Protection Platform, that is commonly is being offered by those big AV houses as a part of the bundle, because some of the component like vulnerability assessment is for some they already have incorporated all those things into their tool to offer a single unified platform to detect that. But by the counter response to avoid the long-term trend to EPP, some of the vendor actually is doing a smart move by expanding the application security testing, or they use the word unified vulnerability management to provide more and more of the niche domain of the functionality that it is hard to be copied or be incorporated into EPP. Yeah? So, or even they are using the word vulnerability risk management by incorporate the government risk and compliance kind of the mechanism to make their tool is more niche to the customer in that specific area. Same as well that you will notice that some is like just the slide, you will notice that they are even trying to handle the operation technology, the OT, that in the very traditional, it is in the past is not even classified as really the IT domain, right? But they were trying to bridging over to making their unified offer that so unique in such a way that to make them continue to remain. Of course, that you notice that the trend of DSecOps will be keep continue, because the trend is basically that at this point of time, where everyone is go to the microservices, and then the developer looking for a faster way to perform their testing and speed up rolling out the developed product into the market. I mean here referring to the application, right? Definitely they will looking for a way to automate it or integrate it to make them easily to access to other of the tools, typically to the API access to perform the scanning, where in the past they more concentrate is more on the static, like the SAS, static application security testing, but they will be also that based on this model, they will able to perform the dust testing. In particular, we are talking about the automate manner that they are just make the call. However, among these few things here, manner application security testing or pen testing, it remain is a very human and experience-based domain that even you so-called doing for the dynamic application security testing, we mean not automate manner. The person must be experienced in perform ethical hacking, and then they know how to turn the web browser to become a proxy, and then from there they will be sniffing from all the passing over traffic from the web server, and then they will try to modify and manipulate all the parameters and then send back and to perform some sort of the bypass, authentication, and other form of the attack. So this will be like that kind of scenario. Because we talk about application security testing, so we won't talk much on this runtime application self protection and WAF matter, because it is more on protect scenario. So, but we talk about the testing from this scope of the talking. So we come to the next thing here, right? So the big house bundle will not work. Why so? Because in the first place, those big house, they were trying to bundle all of their tools for you, but as you know that not all their product is the best in class, right? So, and then it is based on the vendor centric. It is not based on what the customer need. So actually, by big bundle, actually it will making that specific vendor log in and then make them sticky. This is why a lot of the vendor try to doing so. Either will be trying to create and make the existing customer more difficult to move to the different customer, or upsell, cross-sell, or making, or maybe just rise the pricing or whatever. It just try to meaning to make them because they know the customer already invested in the certain technology, they won't simply just move. So in that scenario, customer actually who take the big bundle end up is actually pay more. And then for the one reason big bundle will not work is because that in the market, beside though the generic technology that we are talking about, the technology, the general one we are talking, we are referring to this few tabs. So we are talking about, for example, this is the three common tabs. So for application security testing, that people is to adopt for the static. They mean for the perform the source code review based on automated machine. However, you still need to have a background knowledge for those source code to make use of it. This is why this is quite heavily used by the developer in Steel, right? And then to perform the software composition analysis, these few years start popular, and particular for those the third-party open source module that we are talking. And of course, backdrop testing with the dynamic application security testing is widely used to be handling for the web applications. Interactive application security testing, it is not really, some people believe that it is like the gray box testing. It is not. It actually is another form of the testing. Is mostly for people to have a dynamic and static, that some of the tool you can using, you have possess of the same house tool, you can actually trigger for the IAST testing. Some other is offering a bit of the hybrid approach, but they have this class of the two assets, because now we talk solution, so we won't talk specific brand. So then of course, penetration and exploiting testing, it depends. So if say if for web, then the tool that we're talking is might be geared toward doing for the web penetration testing tool, and then for perform the manual application security testing, there is some of the common trait technology that to address that scenario. However, as you can see, let me jump a bit. Okay, they did have a niche domain out from just what we're talking about. I give you for example, this is the SAP. We're talking about SAP ERP application. As we all know that from the enterprise scenario, one of the very important business application is the one they use is like SAP or ERP, because it's almost cuts across all the important business process within the enterprise. So indeed, it will be challenging that you're using all those just the generic technology tool, because it won't able to cover much of the challenge that you want to do for ERP application security. Some it will be addressed with a different tool, like for me, like operate OS system security, OS vulnerability, all those things. You may be addressed with using the generic vulnerability scanner. That is good to dealing with using for the host scanning, the OS. So they have the database security. This is sometimes from those traditional web-based one. Then of course you can't using the web scanner, because even using a web application scanner, that it is touching on database, but they don't really touching in so a deep way. So sometimes in this scenario, the one that you're dealing with is sometimes is what we call database security scanner. That is even doing up to the user right review. That is very specific to the database software we're talking. And then of course, the unique thing about that is the ABAT code security. It is really specific, unique to the SAP. So that at the same time for SAP system security is why that if you have their own really niche domain scanner just specifically for the ERP we are talking about. Then of course we touching already for the database security. That is to, in particular, they have only that kind of tool it can perform for the user right review. That to know in exactly from that specific database who have unusual and abnormal access right to access for any specific table and so on. Because for some of the industry have regulatory compliant, they need to make sure for database security, like the administrator cannot seeing for the ID and password for all those specific users that within the table. They need to be masking all those things and so on, right? So they have that kind of thing here. Wireless network, of course, we're talking, and then we're talking about the SCADA. Just we mentioned the SCADA. Thinking that the OT, right? We're talking about nowadays they talk about the OT because of SCADA and ICS, and then now in a more wider area they talk as an OT. That is become a expanding niche domain that it need to be covered. So let's move on to okay, right? So okay, before we continue in this slide again, right? So different company will be practicing different kind of the business process, right? Some that you may see about the process from developer, from their time they plan and design their code, testing, release, and packaging the software, then deploy, then operate the software, and then we monitoring to make sure it is running. Actually, each of these key phase that you have a very unique challenging that you need to deal with. Traditional, we have to make a cut that developer or development department dealing with the fund 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phase, right? And then for let the operation to dealing with the deploy, operate, and monitor, right? But when we say, oh, eventually this thing will be continuous integrated security thing we're calling for very early stage is mostly on deal with the secure software development life cycle training to make sure the developer is equipped with the right framework that to know how to perform the secure coding. Then before the coding, we have the SAS kicking to perform the vulnerability assessment. Two main type of technology here with relevant. One is for the IDE that is plug in the let's say like Visual Studio, right? You perform the page scanning on their code. Another one is the whole project that is compiled. Then you are scanning for the complete project code, right? There's two things here. In the development before roll into the production, yeah, maybe that for the prototype or whatever that is running, you will perform the dynamic testing at this phase. to remove it as early as possible to save the time. So then for packaging time, so we maybe have a policy compliant testing checking to make sure it comply to your own internal policy. But for those government industry and sector, they're more concerned on complying to some of the industry standard compliant to make sure all the things that is mentioned, they are properly checked and comply, right? Then going into the production, we do VA. Then we again check again the production compliant. Then we have VA again, and the manual penetration testing. May or may not be done in-house. It may be outsourced to people because this is not a really continuous needed process. It may be for the reason for compliance, maybe half a year they will engage people doing one time to get the third-party view, for instance, right? So an audit, monitor, and then the protection, all those things is to make sure that the application performance, the load, security, all those things is being properly covered. So that is more on the monitoring phase. Okay, so we move to the next one is on the to encounter, to address all those the problem that we just touching on all those points, right? So the more makes sense is actually is adopt the holistic approach to the modern application security testing. One of the key things to do is actually is to design a modern app security program, in-house one, right? So how to say so? You need to aware all the vendors in the market, they are selling product. They definitely will try to brainwashing. I use the word brainwashing. You in a lot of way through their marketing campaign. Either they will be make a very aggressive sponsor for some report or some analyst report to making to have a very good ranking or whatever, right? Because they are in the business of selling the product. So you must be aware. Sometimes they will introduce you something, the technology that may or may not be really relevant to your own scenario. That's why you need to coding for what I call it the need-centric. You must be based on what you need, know what they want you to not what they want you to buy, the desire to have by bundle or something that you actually you won't use it, or maybe that by using that you are actually in a very good scenario for their licensing scheme. You must base on what you have, and then whether that the tool is still relevant or is actually considered as a legacy technology that may or may not be really relevant to your own scenario that for now and for future. In particular, now we have more and more modern platform to develop, go beyond the traditional programming that nowadays they call for the cloud apps kind of a mechanism, right? How much the company you really afford to spend. Sometimes people won't see the hidden and running cost. They just talk about a years. They have a running cost. You maybe take note for most of the technology. Even you so-called, you can still access to perpetual license. You buy off, then you pay for maintenance. That even you won't pay maintenance is still working. But you remember, there is the security domain. Once that your whatever product you have in play, it is not able to access to the ongoing subscription to the latest signature update and features, practically the product that you have is immediately obsolete. There is a reality, so that it is have the running cost. It is never ending cycle. So you may need to be take in for the hidden running cost from the software continue. You need to pay for how much for 3 to 5 years. The hardware, sometimes the hardware will be needed if you're running in the hardware, or even you're using the virtualized machine, right? You still need the resources to provision to make it to be able to run it accordingly. Not to mention again your manpower training costs. You can't expect that your staff, your automatically will be upgrading the skill that using the specific tool into the utilize the tool if you provide the proper training for them. So they have a hidden cost like that. We talk about GRC thinking here. So you need to know actually what is the risk for the business for this specific asset, let's say the application you want to protect, right? And then what is the likelihood on impact and how much is enough? It is not the mission critical application that afford for downtime or be just with a backup you can be recover and then all that kind of thinking. So actually you may be safe to say so that you may not be need to invest them like those the mission critical application that you have, right? You may need to isolate it, what is the important and what else is not important. The reason so, then you may want that you have very clear understanding of that. You know already what is the application you may need a proper protection. Some of them you may put it in second tier. Well, when you have this kind of the maturity, then you are most likely will make a huge saving. Because why? You may not be up for using one tool to ruling every thing you have, because in reality, as what I just shared with you, it is impossible to have a one tool can doing everything well. You will still need few tools, so that you may looking for those more effective, cost-effective, like unlimited IP, single install, that kind of licensing or whatever, that to bring down the total cost of ownership to maintain all that kind of stuff. You do not forget also that for the compliance, because sometimes you may need to see from what industry you are in, right? So you just need to sometimes to cover what is being needed. You no need to overdone all those things that beyond the compliance. Well, it is nice to have that, but it is not really doing anything scoring higher than really comply, because it is just a matter of pass and fail. There's nothing so-called high score. So you may need to know, right? So what is the risk, and then business risk and likelihood of being exploited, right? Because sometimes it is more for you to concentrate on something external, likely to trigger exploitable vulnerability. You focus rather than something that it is not really can be or very difficult to be exploit, that even is from the internal kind of the vulnerability, and you spend a lot of money on that, right? It's not make any business sense at all. So you must think with the GRC and risk management thinking, right? That the business driven. So and then when the design on your own decision metrics, you may just using a piece of paper, just make a cross metric here, then divided for what really matters, just putting all those things there to help into sorting out. Actually, for example, is an ad hoc need or you continuous need to scanning, because for most of the customer I saw, none of them is actually all of their website is need to doing on the continuous scanning, you know, the testing basic. Even for the developer, they can't doing the their own source code scanning in the everyday for the project layers, because it don't make any sense. So that it is more in that scenario, then it's not a continuous need. Then again, from there you can divide already how much continuous scanning needed, and then how much is ad hoc needed. So once you have all those figures, you are making you to design your own security program much more easier. One-off project, it just need for one time off, then it is the most cost efficient is always to be engaged and then to provide for the one-off service to the people who are willing to doing it instead, because remember, it always have the running cost that is hidden when you keep the tool. It's just like the car. Once the time you own it, then you got to maintain it, right? So another decision-making key point is about whether that you have the internal resources like manpower, expertise, that for you to able to apply and using the right technology and the right tool to carry out the task in the correct way. I want to use the word correct way because sometimes you're using the wrong tool, doing the wrong thing, you won't achieve anything actually, right? So, and then you need to spend the time for the education, training, and skill development for the manpower we mentioned, because there is in the domain of the competency is matter. So we hope that by sharing on just what we're talking about, we design this as a quick summary, that design a modern application security program. It work for you. It is a future proof for you to able to help you to develop your in-house based on your need, instead of being brainwashed by those vendors in the market, or end up you are getting something you no need. You must base on your own need. I would say that this is more realistic approach, and then that don't forget about spending some of the budget for your manpower to skilling them up in terms of the competency. So and then you must always to review all the tools that you have invested in the past. They continue to be relevant into the changing modern application security testing scenario, right? So we hope that will help you to have a proper understanding on what this topic is about, and then we will be ending this and conclude in this phase. And we thank you for your to join in. So I will turning on this Q&A so that you may able to. Yeah, Sahina, do you have anything want to talk before I end these sections?
No.
No, okay. I will be giving you this recorded video as a reference. Thanks for the joining. So have a good day. Okay, thank you.